So obviously she's not going for a career in diplomacy, but she's a real passionate advocate of the restaurant. And what ended up happening was the restaurant's a family restaurant, so they told her, please stop talking about us, you're not the voice that we want for our brand. Thank you very much, but no thank you. And of course she didn't, and the media picked up on it. And Playboy, which is whatever else you may think of them or her, is a brilliant marketing organization, right? I read it for the marketing. And they decided that they would do a search for the Girls of Olive Garden calendar. And they launched a nationwide search, and they found 6 girls who all worked at Olive Garden restaurants, and they recruited them, they created a calendar all about Olive Garden girls, right? So the lesson in this is you can't choose who's going to love your brand. You can't choose. And the question is, are you going to be okay with who loves your brand and go in a different direction, which is fine, or are you going to try and shut that person down, and that's not going to work. The third piece here is that people don't ignore marketing. A lot of times we do marketing in social media or otherwise, and we think, we don't want to admit that we're marketing, so let's pretend that we're not. Let's try and be friends with our customers, right? Let's try and do something that isn't necessarily going to give them the sense that we're just promoting something. We're just kind of giving them information, and won't they use that, right? And the thing is that people don't ignore marketing because it's marketing. They ignore marketing because it's not relevant for them. So this is an example of a campaign that we did for Lenovo during the Olympics, the Beijing Olympics just last year. And their big challenge was that they had 30,000 pieces of equipment, right? 30,000 computers, laptops, whatever types of equipment, that they were just providing for the Olympics to do all of the computing for the Olympics, right? That was their story. That was their sponsorship. Now, that took less than 30 seconds for me to tell you, and it's a very small story in the media, and it's not something that anybody cares about unless the technology doesn't work, right? And the Olympics is almost 3 weeks long. So that's not a story that's going to last them for 3 weeks. So the question is, Lenovo spent all of this money doing all of this marketing around the Olympics. What are they going to do that gets people talking and that gets them to engage and not ignore their marketing or just see it as background? And so this concept was, what if we went out and we found 100 Olympic athletes who would all share their stories of their journey to the Olympic Games? So not the Olympic athletes that we all get in the media, Ian Thorpe's or the people who win medals, but the real Olympic athletes. Right? And by that I mean the people who struggle to get there, and when they go there and, like one of our South African cyclists, finish 17th in the world, are thrilled with that, because that's the highest they've ever done. Right? How do we get those people? And how do we tell their stories? And those were the 100 bloggers that we got. We put all their stories together and we gave them all laptops. And we didn't pretend like we didn't, right? We said very transparently, we gave them laptops because they're blogging and they need a laptop. Right? Very logical. Obviously, there's a product placement there because they were using the IdeaPad laptop from Lenovo. But what we were getting them to do was share their stories of the games, and Lenovo's role was to unlock that. Very, very powerful way that they got people to pay attention, to actually look at what they were doing, and to engage with them, and all of these metrics behind it. And there's a great YouTube video that we put together that talked about all the metrics behind this, and what we actually measured and how we moved the needle and what we did. But it was a very, very interesting program because it didn't get ignored, and it wasn't unbranded. It was totally branded, but it didn't get ignored because it was valuable and it offered something. The next piece is that talking like a human, like a real human, right, not like a robot human, really works. So this is a Twitter feed from the CEO of ING Direct in Canada. And this is the sort of thing that he tweets about all the time. He talks about employees doing great things. He talks about a training session that he held with his employees. He talks about picnics. He talks about dinners. Is this the kind of stuff that you expect a CEO of a financial services company to talk about? No. Right? He's sharing stuff that just sounds like a real person. God, how could a real person be CEO of a financial company? How could that happen? But here's this guy who's saying, you know what? People associate with my brand, and that's important. And that's what I'm going to use the Twitter feed for. Again, a very powerful way of being human and making that work. This is another campaign that we did for LG, which was all around this idea that there's a gap between parents and teenagers in terms of language when it comes to text messaging. The teenagers are using this lingo on text messages that parents don't get. And so what if we could create a dictionary that would allow these parents to decode what these kids are saying, so that they could figure out that TMI means too much information, right? Or they could figure out that LOL, what that means, right? And all sorts of other stuff that I don't know what it means, but apparently it's really cool and they use it, and there's no vowels involved. So really, really interesting and, again, useful tool. Now, this is branding, right? The LG phone's right there. Win a chance to win the LG phone. Product promotion, right next to it. We're not hiding that. But we're creating something of value that people talk about. And because we created something of value that people talked about, we had all sorts of attention on it. The traffic to this went through the roof. We got placed on 10 of the most popular blogs in the US. We got covered in the media. We got on television. All of these things happened because this was a highly, highly useful and engaging tool, and not because we said, you should buy the latest LG phone because it's got a 3-megapixel camera, and isn't that great? Not a product message. Direct. Number 6, right? I have 2 left. Lucky you. Celebrities are accessible. Right? More and more celebrities are starting to use things like Twitter. Twitter's been huge for celebrities to start using because it is a very simple concept to explain. Right? Twitter's become the tipping point for social media, so people who would never consider using social media are on Twitter. And that's why there's so much buzz about it, because it's simple. It makes something that people didn't really get. Why would somebody blog? Why would somebody do any of these things? It makes it simple. So Stephen Fry, this is an old screen grab, but now he has sort of over 1 million followers. Very well-known English actor. For a time, before Ashton Kutcher, he was the #1 most followed person on Twitter. Huge, huge impact. And the reason why was because he was entertaining. Because he would talk about these random things and he would demonstrate his personality. He was very quirky, he was very sort of English humor. And if you like that, he had a great Twitter feed to follow. Because he would do all of these things and it would be very, very interesting and very, very fun. But more importantly, you could actually send a tweet directly to him and he would get back to you. So imagine that concept 10 years ago. You had to get past the secretary, the assistant, the